Hey, what's up guys? So it's been a little bit since my guide and a few things have definitely changed since then. So I wanted to just quickly make a video about what I'm going to be crafting on Tuesday, our new stat kind of priority system, trinkets to be on the lookout for still, and just touch on those things to get you guys prepared for all the Mythic Plus stuff that's going to be happening on Tuesday, right? I am still planning on making a full Mythic Plus Affliction guide, but in the meantime, I wanted to quickly just make a video to help you guys out on what you should craft, or at least what I'm going to be crafting, and our stats, and kind of talk about my opinions about those kind of things, since it gets asked a lot on the stream. But let's jump right into it. All right, guys, so jumping right into it, I do want to apologize that my voice might sound a little different. I've been sick with COVID for like the last week, and I'm definitely putting behind on some stuff, but I'm feeling a lot better now. But if you've been around the stream, you know. So my voice is still a little messed up, but I wanted to get this done before Tuesday because I've been getting a lot of questions on the stream about what am I crafting, what have I already crafted, our stat priority and stuff. So kind of just quickly going over all of these things in this video to try and cover that, and then I'll cover everything else when I actually finish the Mythic Plus guide soon. But a big thing is our stats have changed, at least our stat priority right now, even from when my guide was my original guide. So we do want crit mastery now. I am going more crit mastery, keeping them even with each other. And I do want to put like an asterisk on this. So yes, crit mastery for your stats. I'll show some sims in a second here. However, you still want haste. That number is kind of up to you and what you like to play with. And what feels good for you. I think Affliction is a spec that feels very different depending on whatever your haste values are. Obviously, you can say that for a lot of specs, but because we have so much casting in our ramp up sometimes, even if our globals are a little slow, just the way that some of our entire kit feels to play with low haste, in my opinion, doesn't feel great. But that number, I think, is going to be unique to individual persons. So sim yourself always. Sims are working again. And you're probably going to have to make some decisions, right? So for me personally, I like to be as close to around 20% haste baseline as I can get. You can see right now, I have this like the chaos potion on right now, so my stats are going to be a little all over the place. But essentially, and my baseline, these are all my baseline stats minus this potion. I'll just take this off. But I want to be a little bit closer to 20% haste without giving up crit mastery. So I'm still prioritizing crit mastery for all of my stuff and still trying to pick up as much haste as I can get. So I just want to, I keep answering that question on the stream a lot, and I keep getting that question frequently about our stats being crit mastery now and not specking haste. So I just wanted to say, always sim for sure, but how much haste you play with is definitely going to be up to you. And you might have to move some things around, and maybe when you sim stuff, maybe make some decisions on, I don't want to give up that much haste for like a 1% upgrade or a 0.5% upgrade, right? So definitely try it for yourself. So jumping into what I'm going to be crafting on Tuesday, I want to preface this as well as this is what my plan is for Tuesday. Your gear setup might be very different than mine, so that is something you're gonna have to adjust with. But if I am planning right now, which is what I'm doing, I'm expecting to not get a weapon out of my vault, right? I have a pretty decent vault. I did tier 8 bountiful delves, so my bountiful delves is all completely maxed out, right? My guild was only able to kill 4 bosses on heroic, so I have 2 heroic slots and then a normal slot, and then obviously our mythic 0, right? So I'm expecting to not get a main hand out of my vault. If I do, this will change a little bit, but if I don't get a main hand, I'm going to probably craft a main hand with Sigil of Ascension on it. So the Sigil of Ascension is one of our best embellishments now. It basically just gives us a bunch of random secondary stats. But when you pair it with our other embellishment, which will be this Writhing Armor Banding, it doubles the effectiveness of that embellishment. So it just doubles the amount of stats we're getting from that. The nice thing about this is it can go on either main hand or offhand. So that's what I'm going to say. If you happen to have a really good main hand, or you get like a myth track main hand or something like that very early, like not this Tuesday, but the following Tuesday from your vault or something like that. And you don't want to make your main hand crafting, you can craft an offhand with that embellishment, right? Right now, I'm expecting that I'm probably going to have to craft this. Granted, the highest level we can craft is 636 if you have all Gilded Crests. I don't have Gilded Crests yet, and I don't know if we're going to be able to easily farm Gilded Crests come Tuesday. If you're somebody is going to be able to do like 9+ Mythic Pluses next week, maybe hold off on crafting and then craft like a Gilded version, which would be the like max 636 one. I'm expecting that I'm probably just going to craft the 619 version and then upgrade it later. So that's my current plan. Craft main hand with Sigil of Ascension on it, with crit mastery. I did a bunch of sims. We'll look at those in a second here. I did a bunch of sims, and crit mastery sims the best for me, even on this weapon. and probably on most of our gear. Like I mentioned previously, crit mastery will always sim highest for us, but don't give up too much haste. So there's a couple things I do want to talk about as far as gear is concerned as well. There's some PvP tokens that you can get, or I don't know exactly what they're called. They're like these Forged Gladiators heraldries. I know I've seen people talk about these. Essentially, this allows you to craft an item that's 610 eye level for pretty much very little effort. I got these from doing one epic battleground. I won an epic battleground. It gave me a quest. I turned the quest and it gave me 9 of these, which means that you could potentially craft 3 PvP items at 610, right? They're definitely not cheap. You can see the reagents value of this says 26,000. I think when I did it before, it's about 30-ish thousand per thing. So it might depend on, you know, wherever the market's at right now. But for the ring or for the necklace, you can craft anything, any off piece if you wanted to with these. I would suggest if you're going to go down that route, to craft the like necklace or the rings. However, 16 eye level was pretty good this past week, but if you're doing Mythic Plus and stuff, you'll replace that pretty quickly probably, so I don't know if it's really worth the investment, but it is something you can be aware of. As far as the other things I'm going to be crafting, I mentioned briefly about crafting main hand with Sigil of Ascension on it. You can also craft offhand with Sigil of Ascension on it. That's totally fine. And then as far as the other item goes that you're going to be putting your other embellishment on, which is the writhing armor banding, I am probably going to put mine on belt, not only because I have a crafter who can craft the belt at that max level already, but I was already kind of just planning on going belt with my other spark and then putting the writhing armor banding. And then if you don't want to go belt, or you have a really good belt, you can go boots or you can go bracers. I would not recommend going cloak because there's that really nice cloak from the raid that drops pretty early on. That cloak is really good, so I would not craft cloak in my opinion if you have an even remotely of chance of getting that cloak. But you can put that embellishment, you can put this other embellishment on a lot of off pieces, so you could either go bracers, boot, belt. I wouldn't really go for any other main pieces, so in my opinion that's where I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with belt. We can jump into my sims real quick and we'll look at the stats. You should always sim yourself, but there is a consistent trend happening. Basically what I was talking about earlier as far as our stats being crit mastery again, that you'll see in a second here. Before I wrap this up, I do want to briefly mention there is another set of embellishments that we might run later in the expansion or later in the patch, which is double Dawn Thread, which is just when you're above 80%, you gain more crit. There is a very high likelihood that we might end up running this for like Mythic Plus later. And it might actually be pretty good right now. However, I think for raid, Sigil of Ascension and Writhing Armor Branding is probably better, and it's pretty good for Mythic Plus. So I would say it's probably the more safe option, whereas Dawn Thread Lining I think is probably just better for Mythic Plus and maybe not as good for raid. So that is something that is also an option. You can send those if you want. You can potentially go double Dawn Thread, and then you don't even have to craft a weapon. You just craft, you know, 2 off pieces. Maybe craft like Bracer's Belt or like Belt Boots or something like that. So I just wanted to briefly mention that in here before we get into that. Again, that's something I will touch on more in the guide if there is more information on that, but as of right now, that's kind of where we're at. All right, jumping in real quick, looking at all the sims. Like I said before, it's pretty much crit mastery for everything. But again, sims are always going to show that. So be very aware of your haste and figure that out for yourself. But as far as my sims are concerned, I simmed basically the 2 items that I'm planning on crafting, which are the weapon and a belt, right? With those embellishments. So I have Sigil of Ascension on there, and I have the Writhing Armor Patch. Or Writhing Armor Banding, whatever you want to call it. And I did my normal sim setup, which is, if you haven't seen my previous videos, the way I like to sim for Mythic Plus is 1 boss 5 minutes, 5 bosses 5 minutes, and then 10 bosses 1 minute, right? And so I did that for Hellcaller, and I did that for Soul Harvester. So very quickly going over it, you can see it wants crit mastery for my weapon and crit mastery for my belt for pure single target. And then this is an offhand that I already have, which also has crit mastery on it. If you look at my breakdowns of all these, it's crit mastery for almost all of them. And then we have one that's like haste mastery, and it's really close. So again, if your haste and your mastery, or if your haste is really low, haste mastery might be better for you. So definitely sim those combinations just like I did, and get an idea for yourself before you necessarily commit to crafting. You can always recraft if you need to, but it's not going to be cheap, right? Especially early on. All right, I wanted to quickly jump in and just explain how to sim things that you're going to craft. Essentially, all you need to know is whatever the item is going to call. So in this case, it's called like the Charged Hex Sword or something like that. So it's this one. I'll just put whatever the eye level is I'm going to be crafting it at. So in this case, it's going to be 619. And then whatever stats I want to pick, right? So crit mastery or whatever. And then you just add it by clicking it, and then it'll get added down here into where your normal stuff is. And then if you want to put the embellishment on it, whatever embellishment you want, just find the one that you added. I have a bunch of different stats on here, so this one's crit mastery. Click the little plus sign, and then you can pick whatever embellishment you want. So Ascension or Radiance or whatever. So you just pick Ascension, and then you just add that to your sims that you're gonna do. In case anybody was not familiar, you can do that with any item. Even if it's not craft items, any item that you know the name of, you can set the eye level and then set whatever the stats are, if you can set the stats, right? But I just want to quickly mention that real quick while everybody's trying to do sims, in case you're not familiar. A lot of the times I think Crit Mastery right now is a very safe bet unless your haste is really, really low, like below like 10% or something like that, right? Again, for my 5 targets, 5 minutes, Crit Mastery, and a very similar situation, right? Haste Mastery is pretty close. Crit Mastery, Haste Mastery, or Crit Mastery again. And you can see they're very, very close to each other. So, like I mentioned, and then for the 10 boss one, I was surprised that Crit Mastery actually went out here. Usually Haste like values really well on like these short type of sims, but it still favored Crit Mastery here as well. I think Haste Mastery was actually pretty close here. Yeah, 4.6 to 4.7, very, very close. Again, like we mentioned, sims again. Soul Harvester, obviously you can see Soul Harvester single target's really, really good compared to Hellcaller. And then it's Hellcaller's AoE's a little bit better than Soul Harvester, other than you get to 10 minutes or 10 boss 1 minute, then it starts getting a little different. I am still probably going to prefer Hellcaller as keys get higher just because that's what I enjoy playing. However, it's extremely possible that we end up playing more Soul Harvester and keys right now. Just be prepared to switch back and forth between the two if you need to. This build has Drain Soul equipped right now, by the way. Again, Crit Mastery for single target. Crit Mastery for single target again. You can kind of see Crit Mastery. Crit Haste for the weapon on that one. Crit Mastery. Crit Haste. It's the same story across the board. The only one that starts getting different is in the higher ones, but even then you can see they're all really, really close to each other with Haste Mastery, Crit Mastery, all within like a 1%. So I quickly just want to do a bunch of sims real quick and talk to you guys about that. Crit Mastery is very, very good right now for some reason. And as far as my stats are concerned, I have been trying to keep my crit and my mastery very close to each other. So 9,000 crit, 8,500 mastery with my current setup. Ideally, I think I would have a little bit more mastery than I have more crit, but I'm pretty happy with my stats, and you can see according to those sims, crafting that weapon and that thing's going to be about 6% across the board for pretty much everything, right? So that's a huge upgrade, not including whatever we get out of our vault on Tuesday, which I hope is something great, because I don't know if your guys' luck has been as bad as mine, but I still haven't even gotten a single map after like 20-something delves at this point. That's another thing, just quickly, if you haven't done your delves yet, Bountiful Delves give champion track gear out of the actual Bountiful Delve cache, which you need the keys to open up. And then every time you do those, you have a chance of getting a map that allows you to then use on your next delve that can give you a hero track item. So keep an eye out for those guys for sure. Do your Bountiful Delves as much as you can. Fill up your vaults. Let's see. I don't really think there's not a whole lot else other than trinkets. I did touch that a little bit on my original guide. Trinkets didn't really change a whole lot other than one trinket. This one. So the Mad Queen's mandate has crit on it, and then it has this huge kind of like beacon type effect from Dragonflare, right? So you deal 3.4 million shadow damage, and then it heals you for some of that, and then the cooldown's reduced if the effect kills the target. But the big part of this is apparently this is scaling with all of our cooldowns. So you want to use this after you use Dark Glare. So do like your full setup, then hit that button right after you hit Dark Glare. And I've heard reports of this thing hitting super hard. So if you happen to get one of these out of your vault, or maybe from your raid this coming up week, or maybe you got one last week, this is a great trigger for us right now. I still really like Candlestick. So if you happen to get a Candlestick, or you happen to get a the serum, the Ascendancy serum, also really, really good. But I think Candlestick just feels a little more fun. Serums has that cast time, it's a little strange. Sackbrood is getting nerfed by the time you'll see this video. However, I don't think that nerf is nearly as strong to like remove it off the list. I think this trinket is still very, very solid for us. There is a bunch of other trinkets that aren't terrible if you happen to get your hands on one. I know some people were talking about running this trinket, also not terrible. I don't really care for playing with it, but it's not the worst. Obviously there's some other items out of the raid that are really special, like I mentioned that cloak or whatever. The ring from the last boss too, that's like one of our best rings. Obviously it's got this extra effect, and it's got heavy crit mastery on it, right? Super, super solid for us. So if you happen to get one of those out of your vault, super really good. Absolutely pick that thing up if you happen to get one. Spy Masters is still our best. This is also getting nerfed, but Spy Masters is just insane for us. Quick little tip, if this will be more in the guide, but if you do get one of these, essentially the way I like to play with this is use it every 1 minute with your 1 minutes, right? So if you're playing Hellcaller, use it with Malevolence. If you're playing Soul Harvester, use it with Soul Rot. Sorry, there's a cat that just walked by. There is a chance where you could hang on to it and not use it with one of your 1 minutes if you know like there's some big pull coming up and you're trying to like really maximize how many stacks you have. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But essentially just sync this up with your 1 minute and it'll be fine. So quickly recapping all of that, there's a bunch of solid trinkets. Transmitter's actually not terrible either. It's a little awkward to play around, but if you happen to get one of these and you don't have anything else, very, very solid trinket. Again, 1 minute 30 seconds lines up pretty well with our cooldowns. It's a little awkward with our 1 minute, but it lines up with every 2 minutes if you just hang on to it. And again, if you get Spy Masters or Mad Queens, both of those are fantastic. I actually think that's our best combo right now, is Spy Masters Web plus Mad Queens. If you don't have Spy Masters, then obviously Candlestick or Serum is good. If you do have Mad Queens, I think you run Mad Queens with with Sack Brood, or if you want to run with Candlestick. Personally, I just think it's better to run it with Sack Brood. I like the on use and then passive. Transmitter's fine again. Egg's fine. There's a bunch of decent trinkets from Mythic Plus as well. You can keep an eye out. Unbound Changeling's not terrible from Mist to Tyranno Scythe. Let's see. There's this one. Obviously, Sack Brood. Harvested Edict's okay. I mentioned that briefly in the guide as well. It's fine. I don't really care for playing with it. I think Sack Brood's better. City of Threads doesn't really have. I don't really use this trinket ever. Dawnbreaker has a passive stat trinket. Totally fine. If you get one of these, like doing Mythic Plus, throw that thing on. If you don't have a Sack Brood, totally fine. This trinket's also not a terrible on use, especially if you get one high enough. Again, if you don't have a really good Candlestick, this is a great on use. Just got Mastery baseline on it. Hits pretty hard. Gives you some extra intellect when it hits stuff. We already went over Sack. We already went over Changeling. Not any of those. Siege has this trinket. I don't think this is really good. Again, if you get a high level one, that's fine. Grimatoll has this Gale Shadows trinket. I've never played with this thing. It's got haste on it. It gives you some int. It's probably fine if you happen to get one. Again, I've never played with this, so I don't really know. You could do some sims on it. It's probably fine. But again, our best combo, Spy Masters plus Mad Queens or Spy Masters plus Sack Brood is probably still what I'm going to be running. I did also want to briefly mention Enchants. Especially like weapon enchants and stuff. All of your other enchants will probably just be crit or whatever sim's the highest for you. Crit's been pretty simming high for me, but weapon enchants are a little strange because there's a lot of different options. I defaulted most of the time to Radiant Power just because it has a chance to do extra damage and then give you a bunch of primary stat. I have been hearing a lot about Authority of the Depths though, and people have been asking about this, which just inflicts a ton of dark or shadow damage or whatever. I think this also scales off of anything of ours that increases shadow damage. So this is also a really, really good potential weapon enchant. So something to keep an eye on. Again, when you're simming, just throw it in the sims, see what your sims say, maybe give it a shot. They're not cheap right now. So like, 30 to 40,000 gold for an enchant, definitely not cheap, but those are the two enchants that I would probably keep my eyes on as far as like weapon enchants are going. Again, I might default to Radiant Power, but Depths is definitely very solid right now. All right, guys, I think that about wraps it up. I hope that I covered everything that I wanted to cover in this video for you guys, that I've been getting asked a lot about crafting or what I'm going to craft or what I have crafted. TLDR or, didn't watch or whatever. Basically, I'm going to probably craft weapon or offhanded, depending on how lucky we get, with Sigil of Ascension on it, and then an off piece with Writhing Armor Band to double that effectiveness. If you're not crafting that or not crafting a weapon, you could do double Dawnbreakers if you wanted to. I still think Sigil plus Writhing Armor Band is definitely better, but double Dawn Thread is not terrible at all. Crit Mastery is our better stat priority now. It's not Haste Mastery anymore. However, you do still want some more haste. So don't lose all of your haste, but definitely be on the lookout for more Crit Mastery, which I think is pretty helpful. I think a lot of gear this season has a lot more crit on it, so definitely not a bad thing for us at all. Be keeping an eye out for different weapon enchants. Depths is simming pretty high, I think, for a lot of people, and Radiant Power is something that I enjoy playing with a lot. As far as flasks and all that are concerned, consumables, it'll probably be haste if your haste is super low, and then if it's not, it's probably crit, or the Alchemical Chaos one, which is a lot of people are running, and then that way you get all of your effects when you pop your potion, which if you don't know which one I'm talking about, the Alchemical Chaos one is this one, which just gives you a random secondary stat, and then you lose some of your secondary stats, but whenever you pop your Tempered Potion, you get all of those stats, right, at that effectiveness. So that's definitely the one everybody's been running. Beldar's Bounty is fine. Any of the Hardy Feasts or whatever is fine. Again, I think Flask and stuff like that, it's all personal stuff, but Alchemical Chaos really, really good for us, gives us a bunch of stats, and then you pop your Tempered Potion. Other than that, I think that about covers everything. If you have any more questions, or if there's anything that I didn't answer in this, I'm going to try and answer it all in the guide. However, if you want a direct link to me, you can come by the Twitch, twitch.tv/arson. Come hang out. We're going to be doing Mig Plus all week, every week, forever, until the season ends. There's Cat. Because that's my number one thing that I love doing. I love playing Affliction. I've been playing it as my main thing for quite a while, if you're just finding us. If not, then you already know that. I'm very, very excited for Affliction this season. I think we look great. We're a ton of fun. I think both of our hero talents are a ton of fun. I think if you enjoy playing Hellcaller, I think you're gonna have a lot of fun. I think if you enjoy playing Solarvis, you're gonna have a lot of fun. Either way, I'm extremely excited. So hopefully I helped you guys, and hopefully I see you guys over on the Twitch. And I hope that you guys have some fun this season. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you guys in the next one.